If you're like me, then you are sick and tired of people feeling as though they have to spend a lot of money and time on Valentine's Day. I am all about showing the ones that you love them. But I don't think you should do that just one day out of the year. I think you should do it all year long. And truth be told, I'm not big on spending a lot of money on presents. I personally would much rather have something made for me or make something for someone. In fact, some of my favorite Valentine's Days I've ever had with my husband were the ones where we didn't really do much. We just spent quality time together, like laying on a futon and watching Hey Arnold and eating chocolate-covered strawberries. Believe it or not, that was before the kids. My point is that you don't have to go all out for Valentine's Day. You could just make something. And what better than focaccia bread? Focaccia is perfect as a side for pasta, by itself, or with a charcuterie board. If you've never had focaccia bread, think super oil-rich bread with a crispy top and a toasted bottom and super dense, moist interior. The best thing about it is it's super fun to make, and in my opinion is a perfect date night project. So if you're looking for the perfect recipe for a Valentine's night in, all I can say is, as you wish. Gonna pre-apologize for all of the rom-com puns in this video. We will begin with 1 1/3 cups of warm water, and to that warm water I would like for you to add 1 to 1 1/2 teaspoons of honey. No need to put it in a separate bowl. I mean, let's be honest, that's just kind of a pain in the butt to clean. So we're just gonna squeeze it right down in there. Grab a spoon or a fork or whatever you have close by and stir this up. We just want to incorporate that honey into the warm water. Once the honey has been adequately mixed, we're going to add 2 1/4 teaspoon or 1 pack of instant yeast. While waiting on the yeast to get bubbly, let's get started with our dry ingredients. To this large bowl, I would like for you to add 3 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour. And then the most special of ingredients, a 1/2 cup of olive oil. I'm not saying that you have to spend your entire Valentine's Day budget on olive oil, but you could. I'm gonna be honest, that would be a pretty cool Valentine's Day gift, just saying. However, what you should do is look for something that's in date. A lot of olive oils get placed on the shelf and then don't get purchased, and by the time you get it home, you realize that it is expired. Also, just a tiny little tip, make sure when you're buying olive oil that you grab from the lower shelves to the back where it's dark. Olive oil that's been exposed to light or that's in clear glass bottles towards the top are more likely to be rancid. If you're not sure what you're looking for as far as expiration date goes, on this olive oil it says the harvest date, which was 2018, but that it's best by November of 2021. So it does last longer than you might be expecting. However, that does not mean that once you've opened it, it's good till 2021. You really want to use it within probably a month. I know that's a lot of information just about olive oil, but in my opinion, if it's gonna be like the biggest ingredient in your bread, you want to make sure that it's good olive oil because you're really gonna taste it. Now that the yeast is ready, we're gonna add it to the olive oil and flour party. You may notice that I did not add any salt. And that's because we are actually going to use a coarse ground sea salt on the top of the bread, and we don't want it to be too much. Use your rubber spatula and begin mixing, and like always, I'll probably switch over to my hand once it gets a little more incorporated. A technique that I learned a while back on how to mix by hand is to take your hand like a little claw or the letter C and squeeze through the dough. It's a really good way of introducing that yeast to all of the flour and promoting gluten development. Once you have the dough all put together, go ahead and turn it out onto the counter and knead for approximately 5 minutes. One reason I love the idea of homemade focaccia bread for Valentine's Day is that nothing's as sexy quite like carbs. Well, perhaps oil-covered carbs. Once you've kneaded for approximately 5 minutes, and your dough has come together into a shiny elastic ball, roll it up tightly Transfer it over to the bowl that you mixed it in and let it rise covered for about an hour. While the dough is rising, we're going to prepare all of our toppings for our yummy focaccia bread. And also, you may want to go ahead and get your oven preheating to 425 because it might take a while for it to get there. For our focaccia bread topping, we are going to have some cherry tomatoes, slice up some baby bella mushrooms, as well as break off a few little florets of rosemary. Now, don't go thinking I'm the Scrooged of Valentine's Day. I didn't say that I didn't like Valentine's Day. I just said that I don't see the sense in spending a lot of money. I like rom-coms just as much as every other girl. Some of my favorites are Notting Hill, and When Harry Met Sally, and Elizabethtown, and Princess Bride, and I love them all. I like to add vegetation to my focaccia, but it's important to note that you don't have to. In fact, several recipes I've seen say just to prepare it and then put it on the tray and bake it. Another thing to note is that there are a lot of absolutely fabulous recipes that call for you to prepare the dough and actually brine it in a saltwater bath for up to, I believe, something like 18 hours before preparing. And those sound delicious, and I would love to try them one day when I actually manage to think ahead. But most times that I've made focaccia bread, I just kind of decided on it that day and was ill-prepared. If you go look up focaccia bread on Instagram, you are going to be blown away with the beauty of this bread. I've seen some people actually take the whole sprig of rosemary and lay it on there and make it look like flowers, and that's gorgeous too. But I am pretty passionate about if you're gonna put something on food as a decoration, you need to be able to eat it. So rather than placing the whole sprig of rosemary onto my dough, I actually like to take just the little leaves right here and just pull back, and they release from the stem. Fun fact, did you know that rosemary makes an absolutely beautiful plant in your yard? Several people I've known over the years have actually planted them near their front door. Not only are they bushy and beautiful, but when the wind blows, you can actually smell the scent of rosemary. One really important thing to note though is that rosemary is pretty strong and a little bit goes a long way. So if you don't know whether you like rosemary or not, I would suggest breaking some off and smelling it and even tasting it before you throw it all over your focaccia bread. It's been an hour and something absolutely magical has happened in this bowl. Check her out! She's huge! Do you remember just a few moments ago when I mentioned that I thought focaccia bread was the perfect thing for a sexy Valentine's end? To this absolutely heinous baking sheet, we are going to add an obscene amount of olive oil. It looks like a lot, and that's because it is. You want to spread it all around the pan. And the reason why we're doing this is because when we put our dough onto this baking sheet and it starts to bake, it's actually going to kind of, well, fry the bottom of the bread. You heard me right. Fried carbs. Take your dough, place it on the baking sheet. I like to go ahead and kind of slide mine around and then flip it over and begin to press it down with your hands. Now the object of this game is to try and make all this dough reach the corners of your pan. Now that you have it to all four corners, what you're going to do is just cover it up with that hand towel again and let it sit for about 30 minutes. We are 30 minutes in the future, and it is time to begin the most fun part of this whole recipe. Take your fingers, aka the best kitchen tool you own, place them into the dough and start making little circles with your fingers, digging holes into focaccia. Do you remember that scene from Ghost? It's kind of like that, but with dough and fat. Just picture there's someone behind me and a second set of hands. Now that we have all of our craggly little holes in our dough, we are going to add the toppings. The fun part about this is there's really no wrong way to do it. Just start dropping in tomatoes wherever you think they look best, okay? This is like a Bob Ross painting, all right? We're just making happy little bread, okay? Now that you've got some tomatoes, why don't we add some pretty little mushrooms? It just looks like it's meant to go together, you know? This is the beginning of our beautiful friendship. Now that it's finished up with toppings, you're gonna add even more olive oil. More! Okay, that's enough, that's enough. Before our final rise, I like to add a little bit of coarse ground sea salt to the top. Cover it up and allow it its last 30-minute rise. It's been 30 minutes and she has risen, and let me just say, she is thick. We're going to transfer her into a 425-degree oven for approximately 20 minutes, or until she is golden and beautiful. Here she is, guys. You can see that very soft, bready interior, tender to the touch, but all of those sides, the top, the corners, and the bottom, they've actually been fried in that olive oil. I have to say, it's so good by itself. It's hard to even imagine eating it with anything, but it pairs so beautifully with salami and different types of cheese. It's great with pasta. Look at the bottom. There you have it. Super simple, super delicious focaccia recipe for Valentine's Day night. I just love it, and I think you will too. I'm just a girl standing in front of a camera asking you to love her focaccia bread. But seriously, go pick out some good olive oil, find some toppings, and get baking, y'all.